Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Adri Safi bin Aminuddin and I'm from class M380-220-2A. And today I'm going to present about my mini experiment for subject AGR 422. Okay, so we start with the introductions for our topic. The method that I choose is seed propagations. So seed propagations refer to the process of plant propagations that are often known as multiplying, reproducing, or breeding new plants. This strategy is implemented via the usage of seed. The scientific terms for seed producing plant is known as spermatophore. So, a seed consists of three unique components, which is a seed coat, protective covering on the outside of a seed that is typically hard, thick, and brown in color. The second one is endosperm, which is made of oil, starch, and protein-rich tissue. And lastly is embryo. And after reaching maturity and being exposed to a suitable circumstances, it will germinate and begin the process of active growth. Natural mechanism of seed reproductions coexist with the commercial cultivations of seeds by growers and farmers. So, next we're moving on to the advantage of this method. The first one is seed propagation is known as a natural approach that are effective for all plants. The second one, it is often less expensive to propagate from the seeds rather than other method in terms of cost. The third one is numerous seeds have the opportunity for longer time storage. The fourth one, trees are planted from a seed often live longer, produce more fruits, and are more resilient to the adverse environmental conditions and disease threat. So the meaning of this term is the trees that are planted from the seed can withstand adverse weather conditions and regrow following attack by pests and disease. And lastly, in general, propagations from seeds has a decreased risk of transmitting disease from the parent plant, as long as proper sanitary procedures are being followed. So we moving on to the methodology that are being used for this experiment. So the first one, the method. So for this experiment, the method that I use is the immersions of the seeds with water that has been heated according to the predetermined temperature, which is 40 degrees Celsius for 10 minutes, 60 degrees Celsius for 5 minutes, 80 degrees Celsius for 1 minute, and 100 Celsius for 15 seconds. Then we're moving on to the type of the plant that are being used for these experiments. The first one is yak long bean, which are known as kacang panjang in Malay. Yak long bean is a leguminous plant. Second one is a okra, or known as bendi, which are herbaceous annual plant. Choy sam, which is known as sawi hijau or sawi bunga, leafy greens vegetables. The fourth one is the green beans, known as kacang buncis, is a leguminous plant. And lastly, the king of fruits, which is durian, from a fruit tree. Okay, so next we're gonna talk about the material for this mini experiment. Okay, firstly we have the seeds, the four type of seeds. So the first one is kacang buncis, bendi, kacang panjang, and sawi hijau or sawi bunga. Next we have kettle to heat up our water into certain temperature, and then we have bowl where we put our seeds in order to do our experiment. Next, we have a digital thermometer to measure the temperature of the water. Okay, and then we have scissors, and then we have organic soil, tray, permanent marker, and lastly is a plastic spoon. Okay, so based on the picture, we can see the seed are being immersed in the water at the temperature of 100 degrees Celsius for 15 seconds. So I use my phones to measure the time, and of course the digital thermometer to measure the water temperature. So for the second one, all the seed are being immersed in water at 80 degrees Celsius for about 1 minute. Okay, so for the third one, all of the seed will be soaked in the water for 5 minutes at the temperature of 60 degrees Celsius. Okay, so for the last step, all of the seed will be soaked for about 10 minutes at the temperature of 40 degrees Celsius. Okay, so next I'm going to present about the result for this mini experiment. Okay, so I'm going to start first with the 40 degrees Celsius mini experiment. Okay, so on the second day, we can see that it is appear that the seed have begun to germinate. So next, on the third day, seed germination have been appear shoots. So on the fourth day, the shoots growth is getting bigger. On the fifth day, visible foliage leaf begin to grow up. Okay, on the sixth day, almost all of the seed have produced a foliage leaf. And on the seventh day, which is the last day, it is clear that the direction of movement the plant begin towards the sunlight in order to perform the photosynthesis process. Okay, so next is the second mini experiment, which is the temperature water is 60 degrees Celsius. Okay, as we can see on the second day, it is appear that only the seed of sawi and bendi have begun to germinate. So on the third day, only the seed of the sawi tree had begun to produce a foliage leaf, and the seeds of the bendi, kacang panjang, and kacang buncis had only appeared hypocotyl. So on the fourth day, the seeds of the kacang buncis, kacang panjang, and bendi had produced shoots, and on the fifth day, all of the three seeds have appeared to produce their cotyledon. And next, on the sixth day, the emergence of foliage leaf from the three slow germinated seeds had appeared. And lastly, on the seventh day, all four are successfully sown healthily and disappear to move toward sunlight for the process of the photosynthesis. Okay, so next I'm going to continue to present about our third mini experiment, which is 80 degrees Celsius the water temperature. So on the second day, it appears that the seed of the sawi and kacang panjang have begun to germinate. On the third day, the sawi seeds have produced leaf, while kacang panjang, kacang buncis, and bendi have just produced hypocotyl. So on the fourth day, the sawi seeds were fully grown, while the condition for kacang panjang, kacang buncis, and bendi were still the same. On the fifth day, we can see that the seed pod of kacang panjang and bendi were seen to produce a cotyledon. On the sixth day, only kacang panjang appeared to have produced leaf, while for bendi and kacang buncis only appear a little. Okay, so on the seventh day, three of them, the seed are growing, but only the seeds of kacang panjang and bendi have managed to produce leaf, while for kacang buncis, it is still in the process of producing leaf. Okay, so as for the result for the last mini experiment, which is the 100 degrees Celsius, we can see that on the second day, only the sawi seed appear to have begun to germinate. So on the third day, it appears that the sawi seed have started to germinate and produce some leaves, while for the other three seed, they have just started to germinate. So on the fourth day, it appears that sawi seed have started to grow fully, while kacang panjang, kacang buncis, and bendy have started to appear cotyledons. So on the 5th day, it appears that the seed of kacang panjang and bendy have begun to produce some leaf, while kacang buncis are still in the same condition only. So on the 6th day, it appears that bendy tree has managed to grow some leaf completely, while the kacang panjang is still the same, and kacang buncis has started to produce some new leaf. So lastly, on the 7th day, which is the last day, only part of the kacang panjang tree has managed to produce leaf, while for the bendy, which has been completely grow foliage leaf. And lastly, the kacang buncis is still in the same condition. Okay, so next is the discussion of this mini experiment. So I'm going to start with the sawi seed. So for 40 degrees Celsius, the seed has germinated on the second day. For 60 degrees Celsius, the seed also began to germinate on the second day. So 80 degrees Celsius, the seed germinate on the second day also. And 100 degrees Celsius, the seed also germinate started on the day 2. Okay, so for the second discussion, which is the seed of kacang panjang, and 40 degrees Celsius, it has started to germinate on the second day. So for 60 degrees Celsius, it began to germinate on the third day. 80 degrees Celsius also the same with 60 degrees Celsius, which is the seed start to germinate on the third day. And lastly, 100 degrees Celsius, the seed germinate started on the day 4. Okay, so next is the third discussion about the mini experiment, which is the seed of kacang buncis. So firstly, on 40 degrees Celsius, the seed has germinated on the second day. For 60 degrees Celsius, it began to germinate on the third day. And 80 degrees Celsius also start to germinate on the third day. And lastly, 100 degrees Celsius, the seed germinated start on the day 4. Okay, lastly is the discussion about bendy seed. So firstly, on 40 degrees Celsius, the seed has germinated on the second day. And for 60 degrees Celsius, it began to germinate on the second day also. Which is 80 degrees Celsius, the seed germinate on the second day. And 100 degrees Celsius, it also germinate on the second day. So next, I'm going to talk about the overall thing that happened in this mini experiment. So firstly, sawi seed germination is not disturbed by a change in the temperature of the soap water. Second, the germination rate of bendy seed is also more or less the same as sawi seed, because both of it are small in size. So third is the germination rates of kacang panjang and kacang buncis seed are the same, because the size and the thickness of the seed coat are almost the same. Okay, so lastly, we're going to talk about the conclusion of this mini experiment. Okay, so according to the result that have been released, the temperature of 40 degrees Celsius is the optimal temperature among the 4 temperatures were given, which is 40 degrees Celsius, 60 degrees Celsius, 80 degrees Celsius, and 100 degrees Celsius for the seed germination process for this experiment. So that's all from me. Thank you.